Hey everyone, welcome to season 4, episode 17 of the Senstennial Podcast. And this week, we're covering the trade deadline that just passed. And Pierre Dorion made a bit of a splash here, and we'll definitely get to that. First, though, I want to introduce Mitch to everybody. Mitch is joining us as a guest host this week, as other Matt is unable to attend. We are very disappointed in him. But that's okay because we're excited. We're fired up. The Ottawa Senators have Jakob Chychrun. If you have not seen our live stream that Matt and I recorded a few days ago when the trade went down, check it out. We were very pumped up. It lasted almost an hour. We answered a lot of questions. It was a ton of fun. And you can check that out on our YouTube channel. But anyway, today we're going to focus on the 4 trades that Dorion made leading up to the deadline, starting with the mid-February trade where he traded forward Tyler Mott back to the New York Rangers where he was last season, and in return got forward Julien Gauthier and a 2023 conditional 7th round pick that if the New York Rangers get to the second round of the playoffs this year, it becomes the lower of New York Rangers 6th round picks, either the Rangers' own pick or the Winnipeg Jets pick. So that's the first trade that took place. Benet, what did you think of that bit of a minor depth shakeup deal?
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's a minor depth move. That being said, we know that New York valued Mott from his time with their playoff run last year. He got some good playing time under them at that point. So I think that Dorion was able to flip him back to the Rangers and get possibly a little bit more of a return than he might have got from another team. Because Mott was he was fine while he was here. He was, neither fantastic nor like a drag on the team. But getting Julien Gauthier back, I've been impressed with his play so far in the intervening 2 weeks. He's got speed. He's on the younger side. He's got a good shot. I think that he can bring some pep and some hustle to our middle 6 or bottom 4 as it may be, and I'm all good with that. We shed a little bit of salary in the move as well, so can't complain.
Yeah, Mitch, what did you think about that deal, and what are your thoughts on Gauthier so far?
Yeah, no, I mean, I echo kind of Bennett's thoughts on that so far, but Gautier's been a really good pickup, and I think he's been an immediate impact player for the team where Mott was a little bit, I don't know, he didn't really have much of an impact over his time in Ottawa and just kind of seemed like he was there when he wasn't injured. And Gautier's been able to get in on plays and kind of create some offense that I think was missing beforehand, and has revitalized the bottom 6 a little bit. So I thought it was a great move by Dorion to be able to get him in there and get a roster player back for Mott, and from a team that he knew would value him, like Bennett was saying.
Yeah, and sometimes I think a shakeup's needed in the bottom 6. I don't think Mott was necessarily the problem with the bottom 6. I think there were definitely some other players who maybe were less deserving to be on the roster. I think it was just Ottawa looking at it and maybe wanting to just shake things up, get a guy in there who, like we've talked about, has some speed. That one goal he got for the Sens was a hell of a release, and hopefully he can use that shot more. But yeah, he's 6'4", and I think you can see his size when he's out there. And I'm sure DJ Smith loves having that kind of guy in the bottom 6. So yeah, all around, not too much of a needle mover, but it's just something to maybe mix things up. The next trade, though, had more of an impact on the roster because it was Nikita Zaitsev and his $4.5 million contract that goes through next season being traded to the Chicago Blackhawks, alongside a 2023 second round pick and a 2026 4th round pick. And Ottawa just gets future considerations, just a cap dump kind of deal. Yeah, Bennett, what'd you think of that move?
I I have a lot of thoughts on this. I mean, like, how long have we been calling for this, right? How on this podcast, on I'm sure every other Sens podcast out there, we've been saying getting out from under Zaitsev and his contract is key. And I mean that in both senses. I mean, Zaitsev and his contract. This is not just a case of like, oh, like good guy, bad cap hit. I mean, like this guy just like, like I appreciate for his effort that he put in while he was here, but he just made this team worse every single night. And I read Ian Mendes' article last night about how the Jakob Chychrun move, which we're going to talk about in a moment, signaled the end of the Sens rebuild. I think you could make an argument that this is what really signaled the end of the Sens rebuild, because we were willing to eat this cap and have this scrub on our roster for many years until now. And now is the time that Dorion said, no longer can we have this, this anchor, attached to our top four. We need to get rid of him. And I think it was a good move. I think with a player like that, I don't mind shifting a couple of picks in order to get him out of here. And I think it was the correct move, and possibly the most impactful move in the short term that this team could have made at the deadline.
Now, I know when he came back from Belleville, he definitely upped his game. He definitely wasn't the same Zaitsev that the Sens had through the first few months of the season. But I think at the end of the day, you're right. Like, he's not a guy who should be getting $4.5 million in this league. He's a guy who should, be on a league minimum contract, maybe playing for, a bottom end team that's just kind of looking for a guy to fill a lineup spot. And obviously Dorion had bigger aspirations than that for the roster. And I really don't blame him for having to move a bit of draft capital out to free up some cap space, which we end up know what was used for. We'll get to that. Yeah, Mitch, did you think, in your opinion, that it was, kind of fair value to give up to get that contract off the books?
Yeah, well, I mean, hindsight's a little 2020 on this one, because I think at the time I was a little bit perplexed as to why Dorion used the draft capital to get rid of him at this time when he still had the 1 year left on the contract, the $2 million bonus coming off in July. I was thinking, why didn't we just wait till July? He hadn't been as bad as he'd been previously in the season and seasons previous, and had been, contributing enough to this team that he wasn't actively harming it anymore. But knowing why he made that move now and what he brought back in, it completely makes sense. And the only other feeling I felt was like a slight sense of emptiness, because there was this cloud just over the team for so long, and this this direction of like, if we could just get rid of Zaitsev, and then it finally happened. So no, it was finally it was time, and it was time for him to move on, and it was time for that contract to move on. So yeah, positive move, and it was the right call.
Now, only a couple days ago, Pierre Dorion goes out and he fills that void that the Sens needed by trading that top pairing defenseman, Nikita Zaitsev, to Chicago. And he goes and gets the Sens a real top pairing defenseman in Jakob Chychrun. And this was a big one, was just kind of out of the blue. No insiders had it. The Sens just kind of like took the mic, walked up to Twitter, and just dropped it. We're like, oh, by the way, we just, made a splash. We got Jakob Chychrun. Oh, also, you thought Ridley Gregg or Matt Sogaard would be involved? Nah, Pierre don't work like that. So, he kind of just, I don't know. I guess the asking price drops, and Ottawa gives up a 2023 conditional first round pick, which is top 5 protected, a 2024 second round pick, which becomes a 2024 first round pick if the Sens make the Eastern Conference Finals this year, which, I mean, I would love, but I think is unlikely. But hey, that's kind of bold. I love that condition. And then a 2026 second round pick. So they give up essentially a first, 2 seconds to get a guy who is signed not through just this season, but signed through 2 more seasons at like $100K more cap hit than Nikita Zaitsev. So that's awesome.
What's up, NBA fans? It's time to bring the hoops action to the palm of your hand with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. This week, new customers can bet $5 and win $200 in free bets instantly. Plus, for a limited time, all new and existing customers can get a no-sweat same-game parlay every day. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app today, opt in, and place a same-game parlay on any NBA game. And if it doesn't hit, you'll get a free bet back. I love the Raptors. Ride or die for them. Would not bet on them this year. So bet against them, make some money, makes your life a little easier. Download the app now and sign up with the code THPN. New customers can bet $5 on the NBA and get $200 in free bets instantly. Only at the DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA, with code THPN. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. Void in Ohio. See show notes for details.
Welcome back, everyone. As we were saying, that trade for Jake Chychrun was awesome, and gonna flip it to Benet. Reactions when that one came through the pipeline.
First, let me walk it back for a second. 12 months ago, if you had told Sens fans, this is how far we've come in such a short period of time. If you had told Sens fans 12 months ago that you would land the best forward in the market available in the offseason on the market, Alex DeBrincat, check. You would sign the best, most coveted free agent available on the market in Claude Giroux, check. And that the Sens would then go out and at the deadline acquire the best defender available on the market in Jake Chychrun, check. When is the last time the Sens have ever had 3 gargantuan wins like that in one essentially calendar year? I don't know that it's ever happened.
Gonchar, MacArthur, and Kuba.
Shut up. So, I mean,
sorry, respect on MacArthur's name, by the way. I love the
guy.
But
yes, Clark the Shark, Sens legend. I don't care who says otherwise. But I mean, listen, like these were like the premier targets. These were the white whales, and the Sens got all of them. And it's incredible. And Jake Chychrun, I think he's a huge upgrade to this bottom, to this blue line. And we talked on previous episodes, I think a lot of Sens fans, for fair reasons, got hung up on we did a right-hand D, the right side is where, we need it. Like, I don't know if Chychrun's the guy because he plays on the left and all that stuff. And I think that I think a lot of us came around, especially after this trade happened, to the idea that better players make your team better. And if wherever you end up playing them, they will still be an upgrade. And, if it's Chabot that moves over, if it's Sanderson, if it's Chychrun himself, it's okay. Because, strength is strength everywhere in the lineup. And he had 28 points in 36 games played for Arizona this season. He's coming off of a couple of weeks of basically getting rested constantly. So he's going to be fresh. He's going to be ready for this playoff push that the Sens are trying to put together. And he's got a team-friendly deal for just a shade above what Zaitsev himself had been making before we moved him out. He's signed for 2 more seasons after the end of this one. This is a smart move, and we did it without having to give up Greg or Sogard or Clevin or any of our, Pinto. I mean, like Arizona would have been within their rights to ask for someone like Pinto in this deal, and we kept them all. We traded draft capital, which is going to be less useful to us now that we're not a bottom feeder anymore. And so, yeah, I think I loved everything about this deal. I loved that Dorion showed patience. I think that for a long time, his trades have been questioned. And we've, in the last year, we've seen Dorion unleashed. We've seen him waiting things out. We've seen him making smart moves. And this is another one. And I'm just so glad that we stuck the landing.
Yeah, 100%. And I think you were spot on with the whole handedness thing. At the end of the day, you're getting the best defenseman on the market. And when you have talented players, they'll figure it out. Chychrun's dad on the radio the other day said that his son, when he was with Arizona, he's played with left-handed defenders. And so he's had to, I guess what he said was crisscross in the zone and play on the right side as well. So he said he'll see no issue with Chychrun flipping over if that's what is asked of him. I know Dorion today in the post-trade deadline interview that he did, he said that whether it's Chabot, Sanderson, or Chychrun, all of them are capable of playing on their offside, but he's going to leave it up to DJ Smith to deal with that. But I'll turn it over to you, Mitch. And what did you think of the draft capital that the Sens sent out to bring in Jakob Chychrun?
I mean, I don't know how anyone can be upset with the draft capital we sent out. It's the type of move we've been waiting for Dorion to make for years. And how can you say anything other than thank God he didn't have to get rid of any of these players? For the last 12 to 18 months, it's been Shane Pinto or Ridley Gregg's going to have to be a part of this deal, or 2 first-round draft picks. And then, yeah, like you said, mic drop. He just comes out and he gives up how many draft picks? 4? 3?
3.
3 draft picks, similar to the Alex DeBrincat deal, where it's like, oh my God, we just got this superstar, and there's nothing that's been given up. And I was shocked that he was able to get it done. It really did just feel like it came out of nowhere. But willed into existence once again by Pierre Dorion.
Yeah, and like Bennett was saying, you go out, you get the best forward on the trade market.
Yeah.
I think Giroux is like arguably the best forward that was in free agency. Obviously Johnny Gaudreau was there as well, so
Sure,
you could make the case for him. But either way, you're getting one of the top 2 players who was in free agency last summer, and a veteran guy with ties to the area. But he's a guy with ties to the area who isn't just a guy with ties to the area. He is a very serviceable, still like elite level player. Analytically this season, he has not fallen off. He is still generating a ton of offense. He's over a point per game player, which I didn't expect. I was just hoping for him to have 60 points this season, and he's already going to eclipse that, and he's on pace to get over 80. So that's huge. And then now they go out and they get the best defenseman on the market. Now Chychrun struggled with injuries, and obviously seeing him go down into the boards against the Rangers scared the crap out of me and probably every Sens fan watching that game. I know Dorion mentioned that he was stressed when that happened, and I don't blame him.
Almost turned off the TV.
Yeah. Oh, that one, my stomach, I was like, no, please. But it's all good. He'll play tomorrow against Columbus. That's exciting. I'll be in person for that one. Really looking forward to it. It's just to acquire those 3 players in a single year, like less than 12 months, acquiring those 3 talented players. It's great. And to have Jakob Chychrun's agent come out and say, players around the league, top players, he specified, are starting to see Ottawa as a destination. That was very interesting.
Yeah.
And that is not something you could say about the Sens in the last, I'd say probably 15 years.
Yeah.
And so this is a turning point for the franchise. And I think there are definitely things to criticize Pierre Dorion about, but this year is not one of them. He has made some very good moves here to upgrade this roster. You can see how well the team's playing, the vibes in the locker room, what they did for Brassard for his 1,000th game. Like, everything's going right for this team right now. Dorion, adding a player like Chychrun's great. The trade deadline today, we'll get to this move next. Adding just a depth center is really all he wanted to do. You don't want to mess up too much with the chemistry of the guys, and that's perfect. That's all you need to do. Now you just, let yourself sit and see where the momentum and the vibes take you. And, it kind of reminds me like the 2012, 2013 Sens, where there was a lot of young talent on those guys, Kyle Turris, when the Sens had brought him over, and, they almost beat the Rangers in what would have been a huge upset. And so I'm getting similar vibes to that, and let's just roll with it and see where the Sens go.
Did you see Chychrun's interview last night on TSN in the second intermission?
Yes.
I've never heard a Senators player or anyone who's come to the Sens talk like that about joining the organization. Like I was getting player joining Toronto Maple Leafs long time, John Tavares vibes from that. It was a crazy and surreal thing to see someone just so passionate about joining the organization.
What did he say? I wasn't able to catch the game yesterday.
He was basically just talking about how much it meant to him to be able to come and join the Ottawa Senators, and like it was surreal for him, and it hadn't even really hit him yet that he was a member of the Ottawa Senators, and it was just the way he was wording it that was like, wow, like this really means a lot to him. And I couldn't remember ever a player who's come over to this team and who just had that like, oh my god, like I'm an Ottawa Senator now feel to him. It was so cool.
Yeah.
Who wouldn't want to wear this 2D logo jersey? It's friggin' sweet, dude.
Yeah.
But anyway, we'll get to the last trade now that we've rambled a lot about Chychrun. Patrick Brown, comes over for a 2023 6th round pick right near the end of trade deadline day. Nothing too fancy. A guy who loves to throw the body around. He has 125 hits in only 43 games this season. So, DJ Smith will love that in his bottom 6. Right-handed shot. He's good at face-off. So, of course, that's something that's desirable for this team. And also analytically, he's good at suppressing opposing teams' offense. So having a guy who's a net positive on your defense is definitely a good thing for the Sens. And I'm sure for him, getting away from the Flyers is probably a pretty good situation for him. So they had Patrick Brown, and Ottawa's streak of not having a player named Brown on the roster comes to an end. So yeah, I guess Ben, any comments on adding that? I know it's not anything too fancy, but
Yeah, just a bread and butter deadline acquisition, a defense first forward for your bottom six. We know that the center depth has been tested a little this season. We had expected to have, like a 3-hole punch of Stützle, Norris, and Pinto. Instead, it's kind of been Stützle and Pinto, and then Brassard and Kastelik and a revolving door of whoever is playing center that week. So having another person in that position is good. It gives the team a little bit more flexibility if they want to keep Kastelik in the AHL, or if they want to move Brassard to the wing, or whatever they want to do. It gives them some options. And yeah, I mean, you need defensive players in your forward core as well. I think that not every guy on your team is going to be a big point getter, but guys who kill penalties and can hold their own at 5-on-5, even if they're on like a third or a checking line or something, are very valuable. And getting them for a 6th-round pick, I think that's easy business.
yeah, Mitch, I guess you thinking the same thing there?
Yeah, thinking the same thing, and a guy who really throws his body around on the ice. And watching the Sens from the last week and a half, that seems to be what they're doing to really throw their opponents off their game. So solid bottom six pickup. And like you said, I want to congratulate Pierre Dorion on getting a guy with the last name Brown back on the roster. Knew that was really hard for him.
Yeah, and yeah, before we move to the next thing we wanted to talk about, I just wanted to add that it was interesting to see, I think name carries a lot of weight in the league, because you see Jordan Greenway get picked up by Buffalo for a 2nd-round pick, and I believe it was a 4th-round pick. He is a very similar player defensively, at least analytically. I can't say that I've watched either player play much this season, but defensively, very similar analytics to Patrick Brown. And offensively, he has like the same amount of points this season. He has a contract that isn't looking too great. And Buffalo gives up a 2nd and a 4th for a guy like that, and Ottawa gives up a 6th for a guy like Patrick Brown. So
Yeah.
I think that is also, savvy. Don't go for the guy with the big name. It's not always worth your time to do so. And he didn't get too cute with that one. Now, the other thing we wanted to talk about at the trade deadline is the players, the pending UFAs who weren't traded away. And I'll flip it to Benet, but Ottawa held on to their pending UFAs in Talbot, Hamonic, Brassard, and Watson. He did mention some of these guys in his post-trade deadline interview, and I can touch on that about Pierre's comments there, but I'll flip it to Benet first. And what do you think about Ottawa holding on to all their pending UFAs?
Yeah, I mean, conventional wisdom would tell you that always move any expiring UFA if you don't plan on re-signing them, because then you can get something back for them instead of nothing. Even if it's a conditional 7th-round pick, it's not nothing, right? But I think that there are certain situations, and I think that, looking at now that the window is shut and we see what the Sens roster is for the final 6 weeks of the year, I think I support the move in keeping these guys on the roster. There is an intangible value in not selling. And even if technically speaking, it's like not the most savvy move, because you could have gotten some minor draft capital that you might have been able to swing for something down the road. I mean, listen, like this team, when off the ice in their discussions with Dorion, we can gather, and on the ice with the performances they've been putting up, have sent a strong message that they don't want to be sellers again. And guys like Watson in particular have stepped up and been producing when they hadn't been all year. And well, I completely understand why people would be very justified in saying that then the opportunity is to cash in on him now when he's playing well. I think that there's something to be said for letting the good vibes roll. And, Watson is a character guy. He's well liked and respected in the room, and let him be good for a fortnight. That's probably all we're going to get out of him, but let him enjoy that. Let him be a part of this team. Let him be a part of the push. And the players will respect the fact that Dorion is trusting them. He's trusting that having Watson and Cam Talbot, who now with Forsberg out for the year, and Sogard being, playing well, but being young, Talbot is, at this point going to be our starter probably going into the run-in. And Dorion is putting his faith in those guys, and he's saying, you got us here. I'm trusting you to bring us over the line. And he's saying that that's more valuable than a 5th round pick or a 6th round pick that I might get for you. And, it's the psychological impact of this is signaling the rebuild is over, right? That like we can afford to let assets expire if it means that they help us win games in the run-in. And I think that is a big turning point for this team as well.
Yeah, definitely. And, I'll let you get a word into there, Mitch, but, he was talking about the guys who he had been, I assume, getting calls about. He mentioned Watson, and he said with how Watson's played recently, he just couldn't see himself trading Watson, especially with what he means to the room. Brassard, he's like, he just played his 1,000th game. I'm not going to just dish him off after that, especially with like that game, him scoring those 2 goals. That was huge. And I think the momentum, the chemistry of that locker room, you don't split that up right now. Like you just don't want to remove anyone. Travis Hamonic, he's obviously been Ottawa's worst defenseman this year. He puts all his heart on the line, and I give him credit for that. He blocks shots. He's actually a decent penalty killer. He's just not a great 5-on-5 guy. So, I understand them not trading him. And I guess Cam Talbot, obviously, like you just said, Forsberg's out for the year. You can't just feed Sogard and Mandalise to the Wolves. Keeping Talbot, you're showing your team, like, listen, this guy played with the Wild last year. I know Fleury kind of got the start over him and when it came to the playoffs, but Talbot's got playoff experience, and you just want to keep that in your line and be like, listen, guys, let's do this. Like, let's make this run. Let's see what happens. Vibes are good. And you don't know, you never know what could happen. So, Mitch, did you have any final thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. It's tough to really mess with the vibes right now of that room, and you don't want to mess that up. I think the only one I was really surprised by was Nick Holden not moving anywhere. I thought with Chychrun coming in, he'd be kind of moved into that 7th defenseman position, and they'd maybe want to get a piece for him. But doesn't hurt keeping him there. And it seemed like last night they're probably going to mix it up between Brandstrom and him on that 3rd pairing. So, but otherwise, I agree. Keep the vibes good. Keep those players in. My only real concern is signing some of these guys next year, because I don't think that's really necessary. But for now, keep the good vibes going.
Yeah, and I think that's a good way to end it. Let's keep the good vibes going. Let's see where this thing takes us. And the trades for 2023 are in the books. Well, until next year, but we'll see. So thanks everybody for watching or listening today. Really appreciate it. You can find us on Twitter. All of our Twitter handles will be on the screen, or if you're listening, you can find in the description of the episode. Thank you so much, everybody. Go Sens go. Really excited that we got Jake Chychrun in the lineup, and let's see what happens here.
And let's get that W tomorrow night.
Let's get that big dub.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, no problem.